Hello, I'm Deborah Hills from Queen Mary's School of the Arts. Welcome to Get Spotted. This podcast series is part of our QM Elevate programme, designed to help you build confidence and develop the communication skills you need to succeed at university and in your future career. In each episode, we'll talk with students, alumni and academics from different disciplines and see how engaging with assignments can be a game changer, helping you refine your communication skills and stand out in the workplace. Let's get started. This episode is English language teaching.
But in second one, we were talking about ourselves as a learner. Wow, it was so hard to me. To be honest, it was so hard.
Okay, so this Get Spotted podcast, we are looking at the MA in TESOL, which is English language teaching, and it's my job. So it's something I'm finding very interesting to discuss. Let's meet our panelists. So we'll start with Ernesto.
Hi, thank you, Deborah. Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Ernesto Vargas Gil. I am originally from Mexico. I came to this country 10 years ago, originally as an international student. And I thought that I was going to go back home right after concluding my program, but they invited me to stay here. So I've been here for 10 years. I have worked at different universities across the UK.
And now you're teaching.
Now I am a lecturer in professional and academic communication here at Queen Mary, and happy tutor of these lovely ladies.
Okay, thank you so much. This is Tahmine. I'm from Iran. I'm international student here yet, and I'm studying MA in English language teaching in Queen Mary University, and I'm so happy to be here next to you guys.
Thank you. And we've got coming in from our Zoom, it's Charlotte. Charlotte.
Hi everyone, my name is Charlotte Asimakopoulos, and I also completed the MA, and it was 10 years ago, and since then I have been working at Queen Mary, so it's kind of come full circle. So the student became part of the university, which was lovely.
Thank you. Thanks.
So it's clear that we're among friends.
Yes, three of us are colleagues. Yeah.
So Ernesto, tell us about the two modules, the names of the two modules and the assessments we're going to talk about.
Well, thank you, Deborah. This is a very interesting program. It's an MA in ELT, MA in TESOL program, which is basically for English language teachers, both pre-service and in-service teachers. As part of their program, they have two modules. One is research, one is approaches and methods, in which basically they see the mainstream methods in English language teaching. And also that's in term one. And then in term two, they have another one, which is SLA, second language acquisition. This module has to do basically with the theories about learning and also teaching, but mostly about learning. So in this case, we're talking about reflexive provision that runs across these two modules. And as part of these two modules, students, besides the specific content in each one of the modules, they are requested to take a language class. Language of a language they don't speak, just as students, and then reflect on their experience. First, in the first module, they need to reflect from the teaching perspective, as it were, and related to the different theories they are pretty much like looking at in the module itself. Then on the second module, and they finally write an assignment. They keep a diary. They have interaction with me in the form of a critical friend, and they put together everything in a final assignment. That is the same case with SLA, in which they need to do the same, continue taking their language class, but they have to reflect this time from the learner's perspective, which is very, very, very interesting. So they have both sides. They also are requested to write finally an assignment we also have some sort of like a collaborative, reflective experience, and pretty much that's what it is.
Excellent. So in the first semester, both semesters, they're writing a reflective piece, but first time reflecting as a teacher and the second time as a student. And they had to go into the class. Which class did you go into? Tell me.
As I talked with Ernesto, he recommended me to choose a language that you have no idea about it, because you should be a real learner in that class. I chose French. I had no idea about it. It was completely new to me. And I took that class with two of my classmates. It was really one of the good things that happened to me, that I have my classmates in same language class. And for the first semester, I had these teaching methods and approaches in my undergraduate as well, but it was completely different. It was rely on textbook. We had to study and have exam after that. But in this one, we study. Now we have it in real life. We should understand, what is the teacher is using in this class? What is the method? What is he doing? And it was so good, because it brings all the information in real life. And for the second semester, I thought it will be easier, but actually it was not easier. It was harder to me, because in the first one, we knew some information about methods, approaches, that the teacher is doing something. And we were writing about how a teacher acts in the class, in language class. But in second one, we were talking about ourselves as a learner. Wow, it was so hard to me. To be honest, it was so hard.
We'll come back to that actually a bit later, because it's really interesting, because you have to be personal, basically. So we'll talk about that. Charlotte, cast your mind back to 7 years ago. Which language was it you learned? Tell us about your experience.
I chose Spanish. Yes, Ernesto. So
Fantastic.
Spanish for me, I was always fascinated, and I love Spanish. So I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to actually learn. And well, I was very excited because I wanted to learn the language, but at the same time, I can understand what you were saying about that there was a lot going on in that, because you had to be a student and, learn the language, but at the same time, you had to also think about your teacher role. So if how do students, what am I finding difficult? So what would my students find difficult? And how do I feel? So it was lots of things at the same time, but it was very, very interesting, because you become the student and you see, why am I not speaking? Or when am I speaking? What's helping me speak? What's encouraging me to speak? So all of that was very interesting, and it helped me, multitask, because as teachers, we have to multitask as well. But it was very interesting to reflect on myself as well, as me as a student. What am I finding difficult, and why? What's motivating me in class? And when I do speak up, why do I speak up? And when I don't, what's the reason why? And what was interesting is what you also mentioned about having classmates, because then we would compare. So for me, Spanish was the pronunciation, for example, and grammar was I felt fairly confident. When I was speaking, though, to other classmates, they thought, oh, no, it's too difficult. But then other aspects of it I found trickier but other people thought were easier. So that was interesting as well, to see, okay, students are different. What might be easy for me, not necessarily for other people. So comparing with other students also helped. So it was a very interesting and enjoyable, I think, experience, learning the new language, but also actually keeping a diary and reflecting on me as a student. So yeah, I found that very, very interesting.
Thank you. Excellent. Can I tell you, I forgot to say we've got another podcast participant who wasn't with us, but we're going to listen to what she said about the task and about the assignment. So this is Jane, and she did French with you, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said you knew nothing about French, whereas Jane had a little bit of French, is that right?
I think so, but a little bit. It was not too much.
Okay. So this is what Jane had to say when I asked her, tell me what you thought when you saw that you had to write reflective essays, that you had to write reflective essays.
So in the beginning, it was a bit nerve-wracking because comparatively to other essays that you write, especially in higher education, you're really research-driven and you're building your arguments around the experts' arguments, and you're showing your professors that you know about these theories based on those arguments. And now it was, okay, what do you have to say about it? And I'm like, oh, goodness, everybody's worried about what I have to say now. How am I going to do this? And also, follow these mechanics of good essay writing. So it was a bit nerve-wracking at first. But then once you kind of get into the reflective journaling process, you start thinking about, okay, well, what I have to say really does matter because it's a good perspective. It's a flip for perspective from teaching to learning, which is very insightful.
Tammy, was it the same for you?
Yes. It was at the first, when Ernesto asked us to send him our reflective journals, I was frightened. I was saying, oh, it will be the hardest thing ever because I haven't done it before. It was completely new. But step by step, when we received Ernesto's comments, we find a way somehow. And I tried, really, to be honest, I tried my best to decrease the comments, to be great, to find a way that how can I write the best reflective journals to, catch all the aspects that he wanted us to catch. But really it didn't happen because I tried my best in my point of view. And again, he told me, be deeper, go deeper to something that happened in the class. It was so good to me. At first, it was frightening, but in the middle and at the end, it was great to me because I learned a lot. I can say all the things that I learned during Approaches and Method and SLA happens in reflective journals because I had to go through my, PowerPoints that we had in the class, go to our readings and find out, okay, now I should, for example, use this one, or I wanted to use this one in my reflective journals. It was great.
And I can say something off the record. Both Jane Ann and Takmine were excellent.
Thank you.
No, what I can say is that they actually integrated two things that have been in the debate, in the academic debate about the reflective practice, which is to consider reflection and reflexivity. So I saw both things. If you want me to elaborate. Reflection is pretty much, reflection comes from Latin reflectere, which means looking back. And actually, one of the main theoreticians about reflective practice, which is John Dewey, consider reflection practice as careful consideration of your practice within the classroom. So little by little, reflection on practice became also reflection in practice, and later reflection for practice, meaning not only looking back, but also reflecting on your feet as you go along, and also with the purpose of transforming your practice for the benefit of your own students. You have different possibilities. You can do it by yourself. You can do it in a collaborative way. You can write about it. You can talk about it. So it is considered in this way. However, lately, people have been insisting on not only reflecting about things, but also about the way you think about things. I mean, the way you think about your own practice, and also perhaps your values, and also the main beliefs that underpin your own practice. That's what is, like, in broad terms, called reflexivity. So these two elements, I would say, form what I consider to be reflective practice.
So I completely agree with Ernesto about reflection in that perspective. So since doing the MA, I agree that when I did the reflection, it was tricky because it wasn't something that I had done previously, and I think it's always difficult for people to reflect because it means actually assessing and reviewing yourself, and that I think people always struggle with. But once you get into it, I think it's very, very beneficial for teachers and students, but it's a lifelong skill. It's something that takes time, and it's something that you constantly work on. So whenever I finish a lesson, I'm always thinking, I ask myself, what worked, what didn't? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? What could I have done to change that? But I also reflect on other things as well. So it's not just lessons, it is also how the materials that we use. So again, when you design materials, you get a new teacher then to reflect, did those materials actually work? But also, if you are designing materials, when you get feedback from colleagues, you need to reflect and think about, okay, so why did they give me this feedback? So that's another aspect of reflection. And also speaking with colleagues. You have to reflect and think about how because every person and every student also the same is different. So you have to reflect and sort of read the other person and read the student. So reflection is a skill that's not, it's, as I said, I think it's in every aspect of our life, not only work, but also in our day-to-day life. So, but it is a skill that needs work. I think it's something and that's why students find it difficult, but it's something that we have to keep repeating and encouraging and saying, it's okay if you don't get it from the first time. It's a difficult skill. It just takes time. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more you get from it, I would say.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Can we look at some examples? I want to get some specific examples. I'm going to bring in Jane's example first, and then you can give your examples of when she had a reflection, when she had a moment. Because I think what we're seeing here is they're so unique, aren't they? You don't know what's going to happen in the classroom. Real life is unpredictable. So you can't just read about it in a book and then see it manifested in real life. So we'll have a look at some examples. So let's see what Jane was saying about her semester one reflection, about when she went in the classroom and what she noticed.
I think so. My teacher second semester implemented a lot of games, and I think that it was a very interesting process for me because I'd never done that as a teacher. I've never created that, but it is definitely something I think that fits with my personality. I think that I was mentioning earlier how I'm a really informal person with my students. I don't like to be too serious. I like to make learning fun, but that was something that I always thought about is that, okay, well, how can I go beyond and incorporate, more informal and things where that it will just get kids up and talking and, uh, silly or, just fun. So when I saw her do that, and it was very simple, the game that she put forth was not, didn't seem like it probably had a lot of time put into it, planning wise, but the way she executed it and how she also participated with us in playing was interesting because it would have been very easy for her kind of just to like sit back and like watch us, but her getting into it and being silly with us made it more fun, I think. And also, you just don't think that you're going to talk to your teacher about the embarrassing thing that happened in your childhood,
And did that make the language more memorable?
Oh, yeah, because it also puts it into perspective of like everyday talking. It's not just, yes, I would like to have a coffee, please, or, are these the directions to the doctor's office? It's like more about it gives you more diversity in your language.
So you had to think spontaneously and then reach for the language that you had in order to communicate what you wanted to say.
So that was one of her reflections was, oh, right, so you use games because they work. So she watched it working in the classroom with the teacher. Tameen, any either that one or the other?
Exactly, I remember the session that Jane mentioned. It was a game that we have to play with our partner or our groups, small groups in a class. Really was the most enjoyable session of our French class, and we learned a lot. And I remember the session that our teacher gave us some pieces of papers and we had to make a story. And it was so great because it was not just learning from teacher, it was not just repeating some sentences. We were learning from our classmates as well, and it worked for me because one of our classmates was great in French, and when we tried hard to make sentences, she helped us, and I remember those sentences now, and it was so good. And something I want to add, it's not related to experience of the class, but it is related to something that we have in our MA. For example, we studied about needs analysis in our curriculum design. And in second semester especially, I understand when the teacher, pays attention too much to the needs of the students in the class, it worked better. When a teacher think now what my students need in a class. It worked. The learning happened exactly in that situation. And when I was thinking, what should I write for my reflective journals today, I was thinking how my teacher pays attention to my needs in a class as a learner. And of course, I will do that for my students as well.
You taught me something as well, Tahmeen, before about that when the teacher spoke to you with your name and asked you something about you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a form that we had to fill about something, for example, about our favorite list, and we had to walk through the class and ask our classmates, and suddenly I stopped in front of my teacher and asked her. First, she was shocked and say, oh, no one had done it to me before. And it was so good because she answered me and she corrected me in that place. And it was so enjoyable. And, the learning happened exactly the time that she was so close to me. She, we communicate to each other, not as a teacher or a student, as two persons who are talking in real life.
So these are amazing reflections, aren't they, Esther?
Yeah, that is correct. I am a little bit curious. Can I ask a question? I'm a little bit curious about something that Charlotte mentioned. That is the fact that we sometimes take for granted that we know how to reflect. And quite honestly, some of us don't know how to start doing it. Once, as Charlotte mentioned, once we do it, well, we can. So what I would like to know is how the course and how the provision helped, for example, Tahmeen and Charlotte precisely develop their reflective skills that, as Charlotte says, goes beyond the classroom and is for life. So how
Can I say first? I remember in the beginning of my MA when you asked us to write reflective, I was, what should I do? I was not sure. And I remember at the end of a session, you asked me what was the incident in our class? What happened that, you remember it well? And I was shocked because I didn't think of it. And you gave me time to think what happened in the class, that as a student, you remember it as well. And I remember the way that you asked us to introduce ourselves to each other. It was a great class, actually. And you taught me in that case, how should I think critically? How should I start writing or start creating reflective journals, not for writing, for thinking. It was the first step that I learned, how to be reflective, how to reflect on something.
Now you can see that I am a little bit stronger. Please cut that out. I feel great. And what about Charlotte? Who was your critical friend in your course? Who did you talk to about your reflections?
So, well, for me, what I found helped a lot was when I did the MA, we had I think it was in the second semester, where each student had to take on one teaching method and had to apply and actually create a lesson plan and teach it, which in the beginning I found a little bit scary. But what was good about that was it combined lots of skills, because first of all, I had to create a lesson plan. I had to teach in front of my classmates. But what I also found very valuable was the feedback I received, because it gave me the opportunity to reflect on my teaching and what I did well. But I had to also reflect, and I also had to think about, how do I give feedback to my colleagues? Because that you don't want to knock the other person's confidence, but at the same time, you want to give them constructive feedback. So that for me helped me in lots of ways. It helped me reflect, but it also helped me understand how I need to provide feedback to students in the future. So my colleagues, I think, really helped me with reflection as well. When I mean colleagues, my classmates at the time. So that I found very, very, because it was the practice that I wanted to actually teach, but then I had to reflect on what did I do well and what didn't work. But it also helped me understand how to give feedback to other people. So for me, that was very, very helpful. And I would say my colleagues, some perhaps didn't give feedback in the best manner, but that also was good, because I saw, okay, that's not how to deliver feedback, for example. So yes, I would say that was very, very useful.
It's very interesting, don't you think, Deborah? I mean, and Takmini, the fact that understand reflection as a social development, as a social activity.
Even for my daughter, I'm when I'm acting to my daughter, when I'm behaving to her, I'm thinking, what? So what? Now what? Really, I'm thinking about that.
You don't have to go to books and check and write an essay about it, but it's good that that's excellent. This now relates to something I wanted to get onto, which is in the reflection Charlotte had to do, and in your second semester, to go into a class and reflect as a learner. So let's go to Jane.
And these experiences are definitely gonna give me a deeper perspective as an educator into why and how things happen, especially because I found myself being more nervous around my teacher, even though she was lovely, very nice, and made the classroom very comfortable. I was nervous to talk to her because I think in my mind I knew, okay, she's an expert, she knows. And then also just the power dynamics of an expert and an apprentice. So despite even she was so nice, I was still nervous. So I'm going to take that into my future teaching and try to reflect on how I can mitigate that anxiety for students.
Something that I want to say is I want to talk about what teacher did in the class, and as a learner, it was so great to me. And of course, I will do that in my class. I want to talk about this, that how I learned that even a little good behavior or little good things that a teacher do can affect on a student's learning process or even enjoying the class. It's not just about learning. When I enjoy the class, of course, learning happens in that class. For example, my French teacher, in second semester, when she entered the class, she told us learning objectives and what we are going to do in the session. And as a student, it was so great to me to know what's going on in this class. And for example, at the end of this session, what will I learn? It was so great. Of course, I will do it in my own classes as a teacher.
Reflection may lead you to, as you said before, to gain voice and to voice yourself and to become autonomous and all that. To what extent reflective can be also disruptive? that you become a more critical thinker and put in question the status quo and actually question what you are expected as a reflective practitioner to question, which is everything. So can I ask your take on this, everyone? Like, yeah.
Isn't that the whole point of education? Isn't it to be a bit
I would have said the same. That's
disruptive?
sort
Isn't
of
it?
normalised. You internalise a critical voice or a reflective voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, please continue.
And I think that's the whole point of, well, one of the main points of education is to question, is to push boundaries, is to research, to reflect, that's how you further society, if you want, in a sort of in a bigger from a bigger perspective. But I think that's just part of education, and I want students to be able to question and to reflect and to be a bit disruptive, because that's when you can truly, and that's when you should. So I think it's a positive thing.
Absolutely. Can I bring in something, please, that Jane said, because I think it connects to everything, your questions and everything. And so this is her talking about how she felt by the end of doing her reflections.
I mean, I don't think I've learned more about about teaching or about anything really than I have within those classes. And I think the way the material was delivered was really palatable, and it then in turn doing the reflective journals in conjunction with those classes, you can see how it's actually applicable to real life and practical learning. And it's not just, something that some old guy wrote about 40 years ago and that we all live by now because he wrote about it. It's like, okay, this is actually what happens, and this is putting a name to a feeling or a name to a method, and that was really interesting.
Okay, this actually happens. This is putting a name to a feeling and a method, and that's really interesting. So for me, what Jane is saying is reflection makes you connect to the academic material that you're reading and makes you understand why it's been written and gets you to see where it came from. And so it's a true self-transformation that you get how and why it relates to you, and you see it happen in real life. And then it might be that you don't see it happening in real life and then you question that. But I think what she said there was so... It just put it really beautifully about why reflection works and why we get students to do it and why we do it. Any last words, Ernest?
No, well, not last words, but something that I would like to say that just occurred to me when I am hearing what Charlotte is saying is the fact that reflection is not only a rational activity, it also implies emotions and passions. And some people lately have recognized that. So it is not only a pure rational activity, but it is also an emotional activity.
I think that's come out with everything everyone's been saying, with Jane's nerves and with the things that you were saying about personalization. Emotion, absolutely.
And what I would like to say regarding this point is that as a critical friend, as a tutor, is a tremendous privilege to be shared your students' reflection process. It's amazing. It's an experience because it's a very intimate. In the end, this is a very intimate experience, and they are sharing that experience with you. This mental, intellectual, and emotional experience with you, and you are reacting to that. And I try to keep it to the minimum. To be honest, I have a very minimal approach to reflection, to let people pretty much fly and experiment. Well, and here we have the paradigmatic examples of experimenting with different approaches. But it's such a privilege, and I really would like to say that on record.
I think that's lovely.
No, really.
You give him joy and answers.
It's incredible.
That's great.
It's an incredible.
Well, I think that's an example of an assessment and a course where students you've grown, haven't you? You've
Yeah, of
grown
course.
confidence, you've grown knowledge, and you understand the importance of yourself in the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
That's lovely. I've got to stop.
Yeah.
But thank you all so much. Really, really interesting. I'll be reflecting on this evening. But thank you for coming along and sharing all your thoughts and ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You'll find all of the links discussed on the Get Spotted webpage. And if you want help in developing your communication skills, why not sign up for the Communicate with Impact Masterclass or one of our other modules, free to all QM students. Details on the QM Elevate webpage.